Hey Mike,
Hey Tim,
how you doing? Okay,
pretty good, thank you. How are you?
pretty good. The
Good.
purpose of this meeting and this training is to try and describe OKRs in a way that everybody can understand and in a way that people can start working with.
Okay, well, sounds interesting. Let's start with the basics then. Tim, what are OKRs?
OKR stands for objective and then key result. So you have a top level objective, and then you have a defined level of key results. And the key results are, how do we measure that we are moving towards achieving that objective?
Cool, sounds interesting. So within OKR, there's kind of two concepts. There's the objective itself, which is kind of at the top, and then the key results, the ways in which we can measure that we're moving towards that objective. Is that right?
Yeah, there are actually three. And if we go directly to what the teams will be doing in their meetings, so if we move into product team example, here's a couple of examples from a Miro board. So in a team meeting, the team will draft this statement. For example, we will improve first-time user onboarding experiences to get users to discover the value of our dashboard faster. Okay, so there's a draft objective. Yeah, and the team will draft that. And then they'll draft what this key impacts are going to look like. Here's a couple of examples. Increasing the percentage of HR people who are using the survey feature within 7 days after signing up from 10% to 25%. So a very specific number on there. Key result two, increase the percentage of company leaders who set up a bird's eye view dashboard within 7 days after sign up. And number three, increase the number of users who log in 3 times within 10 days after sign up from 5% to 15%. So those are the key results. And so that's basically it. Yeah. By achieving those key results, we have a much better indication and feeling that we are moving towards this overall objective for the team. And the third element that we're missing so far is, what does the team actually do? So the work process that is involved. So setting up the dashboards to track usage of the prioritized features, and watching first entry user recordings, etc., etc. So there are two first priorities, and there will be a whole list of other stuff that comes underneath that, each of it with time allocation, a person allocation, somebody who takes responsibility for doing that particular piece of work.
It sounds really interesting. And I think from my perspective, it's one of those concepts that's very intuitive and to a lot of people seems very obvious, right? Yeah, you set an objective and then you measure whether you're moving towards it. But Tim, how well do you actually see this implemented in the real world in companies you've worked with?
Well, one of the I was speaking to a guy called Thomas yesterday, and I said, "Does your company use OKRs?" And he said, "No." What about balanced scorecard? He says, "No." I said, "What do you use?" He says, "Well, we set vision and mission at the beginning of the year, and then there are a whole series of KPIs, key performance indicators, that are created. And then those get fed into our individual targets." And I said, "Do you speak about these often?" He says, "No, once a quarter, once every half a year or so. They're just there as the kind of, the backdrop for the business." And I think most organizations that we work with would probably follow this particular scheme. Yeah? So OKRs are different in a very fundamental way, is that they create a discipline around working. And the reason that we're beginning with what does the team do is because OKRs do not work unless it works bottom up. Yeah. If it's a top-down thing, you may as well throw it away and just not change anything you're doing at all. Quite literally, get rid of it. No point, no point, no point. It is designed to galvanize the organization from a bottom-up process, and that requires a certain level of organizational discipline. So am I saying that most organizations don't have discipline? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, not at least not the ones that we work with. Yeah. And that's not true. We do have a couple of examples of companies who are doing it, and a lot of the good examples come from the tech environment.
Mm. I think Google is maybe the most famous example of a company that has been applying OKRs from pretty much its inception. I was reading that they started with, less than 100 people applying OKRs, and now they're in the, hundreds of thousands of people and still applying OKRs. So they've seen how that's kind of helped them to scale and how it's been a different challenge when you've got so many more people to work with. But really, really interesting idea.
And that's a perfect bridge to the next topic. Google is famous within the literature, firstly because they have a couple of very long films about it, which describe how they did it. There's a book that supports it as well. And they began their OKRs by reviewing them at the beginning of the month and then the end of the month. Very quickly, so twice a month, yeah. Very quickly, they changed that so that it was at the beginning of the month, during the middle of the month, and then again a review at the end of the month. Yeah. So we have to remember that Google is a tech company, and so they write software code, which means when you're writing a piece of code, you've got to check the code very quickly to make sure that the code is the right code. Yeah. So it's different from a marketing department that makes an agreement with an external provider. They don't need to check it 2 hours later to make sure that it's the right agreement. Because if they check it 2 weeks later, it's okay. Bad things are not going to happen. But within the context of a tech environment, the importance of checking work done quickly is way, way higher than with any other type of industry. And this is one of the reasons that Google became famous for their OKRs, because the OKR process was translated very, very quickly into their scaled agile interface and their usage of agile tools such as Scrum.